Now when we talk about API businesses, what are the businesses that we can think of? Let's say there is one travel trivago, or let's say booking.com. There is one application which is booking.com right now in the market, right? So what it does is it simply books all the hotels for you. Okay, it is booking all the hotels for you. Let's say there is one hotel which is um Leela. Okay, then there is one hotel which is Radisson. Okay, then there is one more hotel which is Hyatt. Then there is one more hotel which is also listed in Oyo, but it is also listed in over here, which is, let's say, some XYZ small hotel. It is small hotel chain. Okay, then there is Orange, then there is Red Fox. Okay, then there is you know some other which is, let's say, Pullman. Okay, then there is another one which is, let's say, you know um anything, any hotel that you think of. um um, let's say there is one more hotel that you can think of is, let's say, some ABC hotel. It is there. Let's not waste time over the hotel name. Okay, so there are so many hotels that are getting, you know, communicated by the Booking.com application. Now, what is Booking.com doing? Booking.com is doing nothing. Booking.com is having, asked this particular information, particular set of information that, you know, uh, let's say my, check-in date is, today's date is 7, right? 7 January and 24 is my check-in date. Okay. 7 Jan and 24 year 2024 is the checking date, and then checkout date is 8th of January. Okay, now my budget, let's say my budget is, let's say my budget is 5k to 10k. Okay, this is my budget. Okay, I need Wi-Fi in this, and I also need breakfast in this. Okay, I need breakfast and Wi-Fi. Okay, so these are the information that I am asking from all the servers. So these are what? These are all data providers. So these are all what? These are servers. So now they have their own database. Understand this very carefully, guys. Okay, they have their own individual database. Are they going to, give access at all individual level? They have their own database. Okay. Now, do you think that at individual level, okay, these are all database, different databases, do you think that at individual level they are ever going to share the database access to booking.com? Really? No, this is never going to happen. They will only say that there is a way that you can interact to our database and get whatever information you want in the same manner that we want to give you that information. Maybe, there are 10 rooms that they do not want to show to booking.com, and they want to reserve it for those who are booking, making the booking from the Leela site itself. They want to cater those people as well, and they haven't give the information of 10 rooms to booking.com. They have only made, let's say they have 50 rooms, they have only made, information available of 40 rooms to booking.com, and the rest of 10 rooms, maybe suite or some big rooms, the Leela is entertaining or giving to those people who are directly coming to the Leela site. They are also having their own site. They are also having their own, booking criterias. Maybe this is having, this Leela is 14k one night stay, and over here in booking.com it's 14.5k, but then it is giving you some Sodexo or some different ways they do their business. They are having their own funding and their own ways to do business, right? But does booking.com has any hotel? No. Booking.com is only a website which is helping you to compare the prices of all these APIs, of all the information that is coming from all the APIs from different organizations, which is hotels in this case, right? So then you can compare, okay, fine, this particular hotel is having, quite less, and it is in budget, and I can really stay here for the night, right? So this complete business is what? This is whole aggregators business. If you'll talk about, Make My Trip, what Make My Trip is doing, it is also the aggregators business, right? Make My Trip has nothing of their own, right? They are only communicating with, let's say, some hotels, locations, or some different trip advisors as well. Okay, so trip advisor company, okay, might be they are also communicating with them, and they are saying that, we have a couple stay in Bali. Okay, we have a couple stay package in Bali, right? So they have given this access to them, and they are taking use of this TripAdvisor company data, and they are just getting the same thing populated on their own website with a little commission margin over it. Now, because this is more, and see, guys, see, if you are thinking about, you want, let's take one example of booking a flight. You just understand that this whole business is a win-win situation for producer and consumer both. Okay, so let's say there is one Make My Trip MMT website, and you want to book your ticket from Indigo. Okay, there is Jet Airways. Okay, and then there is Air India. Okay, then there is British Airways. Okay, okay, um, and then there is Etihad. Okay, and then there is you can say Emirates, Fly Emirates or something. Okay, so what is happening? Okay, people can go and book their tickets from these different websites also. Okay, people have the option to go and book their tickets from these individual websites also, but still people are using either Go Ibibo or MMT. Okay, why they are using? Okay, why they are using it? Because first of all, they are getting some benefit in their credit cards or payment system, payment gateways. They are having some benefits over there. Okay, or they are getting they have their own ways to do business. They are getting some coins, the way using which they can get the discounts and the future tickets that they are going to buy. Okay, so now Emirates have their own you know database and their own way to interact with this database via the URL. Okay, there is one way that you can interact with their database via the correct URL and the correct authentication. Okay, the correct auth. There are several auths, like the basic auth there is, then there is OAuth 1, and then there is OAuth 2. What is the difference? And it is a very important interview question. We will cover this in detail in the later classes, but for now you just understand that some authorization is important to breach to this particular database via the URL. Okay, and then you can do whatever. Let's say here also I'm having some my JSON which says in, so this is how your JSON looks. Okay, it starts with the curly brackets and it ends with the curly brackets. Okay, and just in the key and value format from, okay, within inverted commas you will have to give everything. So let's say I am using from Delhi. Okay, from Delhi I want to, and then simply once this is done, you should give one comma, and then two. Okay, two you want to mention, and this two will be till Goa. Okay, and like this you can have one more, you know departure date, and then a return date, and then whatever passengers, number of passengers are going. So this is how you can Give, we will see the JSON formatting later. We will have complete view of that. Okay, don't worry. Okay, and when exactly it is used, how it is used, when do we get the JSON, payload from the producer, in which form we get it, and then where we can go and validate the entries that we are getting from the, the producer. Okay, what are the error codes that comes up into the picture when, the connection is not done properly from the consumer side, that is the client side. So then there will be a client error. Okay, so if the consumer is not giving the right request, by right request, what does it mean? That either your authentication is wrong or your URL request URL is wrong. Okay, or the payload that you have given, that is wrong to communicate, because this is the payload that you are providing to Emirates and to all of them, and they are going to compare and they are going to, give their different rates via what? Via the API only. And whatever rates I'm getting from there, I will just list them down from, and you can, as a user of MMT or GoIBibo, you can sort them in, low to high, and you can simply know that this is the lowest price available for this particular ticket. Let me book it from here only, right? So this is how the whole aggregator business is working, only on the API. And tomorrow, let's say you have, one opening in Make My Trip or Go Ibibo or something like that. Do you really think that they are going to leave you without testing their APIs? Because their whole business is only on API. Oh, UI is something, okay, fine, you have the UI, but then without the API testing, they cannot even go into the market, right? Because their whole sole business is based on what? The API setup only. And that is not even API which is getting company. See, when I showed you book my show option, example, that book my show example is, integrating and doing communication within the application, within their in-house application itself. There it is quite easy for you to control those things, right? But when you are communicating with some other business and they are giving the API access to you only to communicate with a certain, data set in a certain format, then your API testing is very important, because because you do not have the control over the Emirates business. You do not have the control on the Etihad's business, right? So you have to make sure that whenever I'm trying to communicate with him via API, I'm getting the right information. And without API testing, it is next to impossible to launch such application. Okay, so this is also important. Okay, now guys, is you know what is an API and a web service? There is a small difference in the API and web service. A lot of time, this is also a interview question. Okay, a lot of time, people will ask you what exactly is the difference between API and web service. So similarly, that we have done, you remember, that's some method that we have written, some int, x and comma int y, and then inside this we have done, let's say a return x plus y. Okay, like this. So if this is being used inside your system or your code or wherever it is used, okay, in without connection with the internet, okay, when there is no connection with the internet and you are still able to use this API, then this can be said as a normal API. Okay, but whenever this whole thing is now hosted over a server, okay, now it is hosted over a server. Now it is not a normal, API or a small method that you have created. Now this is hosted over a server. Okay, and you can hit this server to get the information or to get whatever this particular API is meant to do, then now this server can be an AWS server. Okay, don't get confused over there. Okay, this what is server? You just host this. Okay, this can be Blue Ocean. There is, and then there is, Cephei is also having their own server. Then there is one server which is, there are, I mean, there are n number of servers out there, and Google is also having their own server. Okay, the Google Cloud is also there. Okay, now these server, okay, so there is first level, there is server, and then there is cloud, and you are going to host your application on the cloud. Okay, when I say that you are going to host this particular API on the server, I mean you are going to host this thing on the server's cloud, whatever cloud it has given you, right? And then when you are hitting this API which is hosted over a cloud, then it becomes a web service, because now it is available for the complete, universe. I can access this API sitting in America or in the peripheral area of West Indies. Okay, wherever you want me to access this, I can simply access this with the URL. So whenever you have a web service, you have a URL. Now there is something which is catchy in this URL also. Let's talk about that. Okay, what is URL, what is URI, and what is basically service URL? Okay, so first of all, understand, guys. Okay, the complete thing is called URI, uniform resource identifier. Okay, now understand this thing. This URI is created with two different things. The first is URL, which is the domain URL, and then it is API service URL. Okay, API service URL it is. Okay, now what is domain URL and API service URL? For that, we have to understand the CRUD operations, and then we will come back to this topic, and then I will let you know what exactly is the main difference between both and how you are going to identify or differentiate between both. Okay, so for that we need to understand the CRUD operations. Okay, so you must have seen these CRUD operations, right? Let me take you to, okay, let me write it like this only, over here only. Okay, so what is CRUD? Let's say I am writing CRUD like this. Okay, let me make it big. Yeah, it must be visible now. Okay, so now your CRUD operations, what is C used for? C is used for creating data. Okay, basically C is giving the, CRUD operations. If you will call CRUD operations, what is C stands for? C stands for creating the data. Okay, now creating the data, or creating, data, or whatever you want to call it, a resource. Okay, or create creating a user maybe. Okay, and then I want to create a new user which is Naveen only, right? And I have to use what? I have to use the create user method for this. Let's say for an instance, let me make it a little small. Yeah. Okay, now over here in retrieval, R stands for retrieval, so retrieve retrieve data or resource, some same thing I'm copying from here. Okay, and then what it is doing is it is trying to get the user information. Okay, get user info. Okay, and this can be for, single user or any user, multiple users, or whatever way you want to do it, you can do it. And this method is get user that you have to, you know do it. So I'm just talking about so far what we were doing. Okay, when we need to update something, so U stands for update data or resource, and over here you are updating existing, not, you're not creating new. So you are updating existing user or existing data, whatever user data or whatever you want to call it. Okay, so update user, let's say, is the method. I'm just taking a hypothetical situation that update user is a method which updates, so that you understand. Okay, now D stands for deletion. Okay, deletion of data and resource, right? Then again, deleting a user info, right? If it is a user table, and then whatever delete user, let's say, is the method that you have to call, right? So guys, this is what your CRUD operations are all about. But when we do these CRUD operations, when we exercise these CRUD operations inside our API logic, okay, some, a little nomenclature and, a little, change will come in the way we are going to call them. Okay, but it is static for all the APIs. Okay, all the REST APIs. So you will find the parity, okay, in the complete universe of API testing, that your creating of data is done using the post call. Now why we make it, why we call it post call, why we say it call? Because this is a call or a transaction. Sometimes you will also find people saying this transaction. Okay, post transaction. So by saying call or transaction, we simply mean that we are trying to communicate with the server using the creation of data via post call. So this call is basically the call to the particular server which we are trying to hit using the, authentication and everything of that sort. So we are trying to hit that server, and we are trying to transact from that server the information that we need to access or to move on with the further user experience, right? So this is the transaction that we are trying to create with the server, the information transaction that we are trying to create with the server, or the call with the server. Okay, then what is post? Okay, post is done. Now what is your retrieval? How is your retrieval done? Your retrieval is done with your get caller transaction. Okay, yeah, like this. Okay, so get is to retrieve data. Of course, I mean get user. Yeah, so we of course know that how what get is used for. Then update, to update, there is one thing that is there, which is put. Okay, put call slash transaction. Now there is some difference. You will find a lot of people asking in the interviews that, please tell us the difference between put and patch. So patch is also something which we are going to cover. Okay, and a lot of people ask, put and patch, and then they ask how they are different from post. Okay, so some basic things we will cover, and don't worry, everything will be covered. Only thing is that just give your brain enough time to collect all these things, and then make sure that whenever it is asked to you in the interview today, tomorrow, whenever, you should be able to answer them. Okay, okay, like this. So delete is for deleting the data or resource. Okay, so this is how your complete, logic of APIs is working on these many calls. Not much: post, get, put, patch, delete. Okay, and put and patch for update, post to create, get to, get information, and delete to delete the particular resource or data. Okay, so this is how your things are working. Okay,